I'm Andrew Murata, host of the Education, Leadership, and Beyond podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the High Tech Podcast. This is one of your two hosts, Joshua Swartz, sitting with...
Whoa.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry.
No.
I'm William Millingworth, and you are?
And I am Josh. The Swartz.
It's that kind of day, isn't it?
Yeah, you know. Sometimes you just forget your name.
Who
It happens.
am I?
Is that not average?
Is that...
No?
I mean, I feel...
I do it. Yeah, I do it on like a regular basis. It's kind of fun.
So, folks, we're back. It's another day. We're having a good time. We're doing a lot of planning. Excited as Season 2 is coming towards the end of the year.
Ish. Yeah, we got only a bunch of episodes between now and the end of Season 2, but...
It's fine. It's, like August
It's
for us,
almost
but
there.
it feels like the end of the year.
It feels like the end of the year. sort of.
Until we actually get to the end of the year, make sure, as always, you are following us on Twitter at High Tech Podcast. Like, interact with our posts, retweet, comment. We appreciate those things.
Check it
You
out.
can also connect with us by email at inbox@hightechpod.us. Now, I will say, I'm not going to get to the content of it. Yeah, I heard you. But we finally received our first engagement email, and so Josh and I
Yeah.
need to talk. That was one thing we forgot to talk about tonight.
Yeah,
so
we forgot to talk about that before.
we won't do on air debrief, but we'll
We won't.
we'll get there. I'm just happy
It was a thing.
we got an email.
Yeah.
Somebody.
If you're listening right now, you know who you are.
Thank you.
And good job.
Thank
you.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Josh
One
and I
day.
pretty
Maybe
much
by Season 3.
Josh and I pretty much do this thing every Tuesday night. Pretty much the podcast doesn't exist except Tuesdays.
Yeah.
We're
That's like
working
our
on that.
thing. Do Tuesdays. I mean, we do some stuff outside. You do editing. I make sure the page is there
That's
most
true.
of the time.
That's true.
Although, I don't know if you noticed this. I noticed this a couple episodes ago. Did you notice that our social media GIF on Twitter accidentally had the wrong episode title on it?
No.
That was my bad.
No, I never noticed
I
that.
used a template, and it was from one of our other episodes.
Amazing.
And I forgot to change the title. That was the episode that you also forgot to edit
Yeah.
until the night before.
We're doing
Remember
great
that?
over here, folks.
It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. That's why I don't think you caught it either.
Oops.
So I waited a couple episodes to reveal the error, and some of you are like, "Wait, where was it? I don't know."
Aha.
You're gonna have to go to our Twitter
We got you.
and find it. Nailed it. See, turned into a promo.
While you're there on Twitter or at your email inbox just itching for something to do, what kind of animal should they send us this week,
Oh.
Joshua?
Yes. So, I don't know if this is an animal. It's not really. It's more of an arachnid. But in honor of here's the deal, guys. We're geeks, okay? And I don't get overly excited about games. Well, I mean I do, but I don't get this overly excited about games
Nice try.
in a while. But I have been waiting for the Spider-Man game for PS4 to finally come to PC because I refuse to buy a PlayStation just to play one game. And it is happening this week. So, in honor of that, we're going to do a spider in... Hold on, I can think about this for a second. Spider in ice skates.
Oh,
Like a spider in ice skates.
spider skates.
Spider skates.
Skate.
Does whatever a
spider.
spider skate can
I don't know.
for,
Interesting.
friendly neighborhood spider skater. That's what I would like to see.
Love it. Of course, this is the week that we're recording it, so whoever knows when you hear this, Spider-Man's
Yeah,
already
when you
been
hear
out
this,
for
you'll be like,
months,
dude,
but-
that came out forever ago. Well, guess what? I was super excited during that week, and now you're hearing it.
Once you've sent us the spider, once you've connected with us on the interwebs, see what I did there? Go to
nice,
our
nailed
website, hightechpod.us, and make sure to check out this week's episode page and every week's episode page. I recently used that, Josh. Somebody requested, does anybody have a list of some ed tech? And I was like, I do. Here you go.
Not only do we have a list, we have a whole site
Exactly.
that explains all of it to you. I actually used one of our episode pages a month ago. Somebody had requested, those of you who've been listening to our podcast know that I'm often the jerk on the other end that has to either approve or deny tools. And somebody requested Wakelet as a portfolio tool in one of our online courses, and I couldn't really. I was like, the rest of the team didn't know that we did this, and I was like, oh, Wakelet. I was like, oh, I'll just jump over to our podcast page.
Boom.
Because ironically, the things that I look at to evaluate our tools, we mostly talk about on our podcast page. So I went to check and found some resources and things. Unfortunately, I did not approve it.
I was
only
not going to be surprised by that.
That was only because we already have a tool that does portfolios. So
Sure.
there wasn't, Anyway, it's a whole thing.
Sucks
I'm not
to
gonna
be
get into
you.
it. If you want to know how I evaluate tools, go check out our episode, How to Pick an App. We talk about it in that episode.
Love it.
From season 1. So you can
we
check that
we
out.
need to do more callbacks. We should get better at that.
I know. We should. I wish I remembered the number, but I don't. And,
Well-
all I can tell you is it's in season 1. So if you go to our website, click on the season 1 icon, and search for How to Pick an App, it's there.
And
I think
with
Will's trying to find it now. I don't know if he is or not. I see his little
Well-
face in our system moving around, trying to see if he can figure out where it's at.
the issue with us is like my keyboard makes so much clickety clacky sounds that it's not. I couldn't do this discreetly, but it is episode 6. So if you want to go back
yeah.
to episode 6,
If only
folks,
we had a database where we could just search
search
that.
it. It's like Notion.
I did. We also
Notion. It's not like
Yeah.
we've done an episode on that before.
we maybe have. We also talked about
Episode 21.
hypothesis in that app. Remember that? That was a good time.
Hey, one of 2 episodes where we. Anyways, so
Anyway,
we've got so much behind us. We're so thankful you're here with us this week. We're very excited for this conversation, and actually, I love the whole tie-in today. But between the conversation and the app, I think we've really kind of nailed it. But first, but not least, college. Is this for jobs or is this for learning? What is college for?
solved. It's for drinking. No, I'm just at least not our college experience, right? Totally.
Yeah.
The anyway. Oops.
We never drank at college. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it never happened.
So the shtick, right, with this question
Yeah.
is, Josh and I are both involved in, and have been involved in, for me, I'm no longer, but designing courses, designing curriculum. We're like in the weeds of seeing so many courses. And some of them are better. Some of them are worse. But like all of them kind of do something a little bit better or worse. So whether they're like kind of training somebody to do a job, like here's accounting. I don't know. I think an accounting course is pretty good at training you to do accounting, if it's good. But some of them, a lot of our courses are really just like about learning, like philosophy,
a lot of philosophy, humanities courses. This always comes up, and I think what's inspired this conversation for us. One, we hear this all the time in college. This happens in high school too, but this is the High Tech Podcast, not the K-12 podcast. Go listen to that.
If you're interested in the
the,
K-12 podcast, go check out some of our partners on the Education Podcast
Yeah.
Network at
look at that.
edupodnetwork.org.
We are all about promoting.
Boom.
So boom, nailed it. But for higher education, right? I think this is a thing. This has come out in some of our past episodes before, talking to different people. There's like these people who are like, I come to college for my job prep. I don't want to take all these other courses. These like, why am I taking philosophy? Why am I taking this history course? Why am I required to take these math courses? Like I'm a major for this, I'm here for this major. Why can't I just take these courses because I want to, do this? And there's a different way this plays out in different places. There's, I feel like, the kind of undergrad, generally after high school experience kind of complaint about it, which is kind of what I just summarized there. Then there is the honest, like the people who are coming back to college who are furthering their education, who are currently in a job, but they want to be in a different job, or they want to, scale up, right? And so for them, they want to just focus on what they need to know for the job, get that degree so that they can, prove the credentials and move up into that space. And then that plays out in different places, from undergrad to graduate education and higher ed. That's also another thing, right? A lot of people going for that secondary degree, or further education if you're teaching or doing something like that. So anyway, the scale is all over the place, but overall, I feel like there's a similar sentiment in that space, which is there's kind of, and this is growing in conversation in higher ed, what is college for?
Yep.
Really? Like, is it for job prep, or is it just for learning? Right? And obviously, as the High Tech Podcast, we have the solid, definitive answer. And no,
Yeah,
But
tune in now, folks, for the
tune in now. We've solved the whole problem. I don't know. I mean, like, do you feel like that sums up kind of the sentiment that and the debate that I feel like that's going on in higher ed right now? I feel like that's been that way for a little while, but it's increasingly going that direction.
My first job in higher education was in 2014. And I remember this being a part of some of my first work conversations. Like, we need to get these kids better ready for their jobs. We need to do workforce development. They need to be doing job prep. And I was like, but don't they need to understand like philosophy and theology and certain like core functional elements of thinking and writing? And no, we just need to get them graduated. We need to get them through this. And so they have the skills and whatever. I'm like, dang, to me, I disagree with that. I do land personally on the side that college, or at least academia, should be about learning, and that learning might result in some skills things or some practical elements that would be useful for a job. But I like learning. I think it should be about learning. At the same stroke, I don't think that there's an established space for job preparation. Like, ironically, even the colleges that have some more like tactical or practical programs aren't good at doing job prep, because people sit in a classroom and learn about the job as opposed to doing the job. So I don't think academia as it is currently is doing the learning or the job prep well, because they're trying to do both. And I'd like to see personally colleges go back to focusing on learning and a new market for job development. And there's kind of some spaces where that's happening. I see a lot of actual companies, like big corporate companies, starting to like partner with companies, with universities and stuff, and do like accredited degrees through the company for people. That's probably more like, helping folks who never got a degree get a degree. But I'd like to see that show up and be more like, here's how to actually do jobs that you're not doing, so you could change your career or get a promotion or stuff like that,
Yeah, interesting. That's I totally disagree. No, I'm just joking. I'm in a similar boat. Now I would here's my hot take on this for a second. Okay,
go for it.
The one thing I would maybe take issue with, which is that I'm not sure it's as segmented as that. Okay, that like job prep and learning are so separated from each other. I think that's why this is a difficult thing to work around, because like some of it is like, and I think it depends on I think this is part of the issue too. I think we as in higher ed try to come at this just from like this giant programmatic level.
Right.
And it's like, but
Let's
it also
fix
very
this.
much depends on what the focus of the specific course or section of program is, right? Like there's going to be several courses that are going to be, in theory, should be mostly job prep. Like if you're teaching them how to do, I don't know.
Tank making.
Tank making. We didn't go to school to be doctors, but I'm assuming there's a class on, surgery somewhere, or there's several of them. I have no idea.
Amazing.
We have friends who are. We should ask one of our friends. But like, there's going to be classes that should be more practical, that do need to engage with like actual doing of the job, or practicing in a low stakes way and then higher stakes and eventually getting up into that space. That you need to do that. At the same time, I also don't think college should be all about just job prep. Like you see colleges and even K-12 schools like cutting humanities and music school stuff. And we've heard even of friends, like, as much as we learned a lot from Alex. The one thing, and I would say this to his face, which is why I'm saying here, we had one of our friends on for the Accelerated series, that I would push back on, is this idea of like, well, colleges do too much of just this other stuff. I just want like this. And for where he's at, I totally understand that. But I would also push back to say, well, no, there's a lot of value in those courses too. They teach you how to think. Right. They teach you how to deal with ideas. They teach you how to work through problems. They teach you how to history teaches us the past to learn from. I mean, there's a lot of in the humanities, there's a lot of thinking on how to think. And I do think in America sometimes we devalue that. And it's like, but that is an actual skill that also will go into jobs. It's just not a hard skill for the job
even beyond
situation.
Thinking. Like a very practical example is like a lot of folks complain about MLA and even APA and stuff like that, like writing conventions. And I know that if you're in a position in a job that doesn't do writing as much, that's fine. I've always been writing adjacent, writing curriculum content, writing web pages, writing whatever. I have found that to be consistently useful in my experience because there's always a brand guideline or web platform requirements that
have to follow
you have to
something.
follow something. It's just like MLA. It's just like what's the size of the font? What fonts are you allowed to use? What colors can you use? What, how far should things be from each other? That's actually a part of my job. And I, when I fought MLA as a kid and in high school and stuff and then college, like I can only just chuckle now knowing that those teachers have been vindicated who always said, no, trust me, you're gonna need this. Like, I didn't think I would, and then I've used those skills consistently.
Put in a practical example. I hated the professor, but the course helped. This is pre the college we went to together.
Yeah.
I had a logical philosophy course, basically like logic thinking course. And if somebody outside would be like, well, why do I want to go off and, I want to do this teaching, or I want to, leave here and be able to become an accountant or whatever. Why do I need to take this philosophy course? Well, in that course, you learn what logical fallacies are. You learn how to argue. You learn, you start to learn components of just like interacting and arguing with people. And also that course helped me learn and identify certain things even to this day of when I see stuff being posted on social media and go, yeah, no, that's you're assuming something.
Right.
There's a fallacy there. I picked that up from having to deal with that in a philosophy course. Now, I didn't like the professor because him and I very much disagreed on philosophy.
Yeah.
Beyond that, but I learned how to argue with someone who I very much disagreed with very carefully so that I got a decent grade.
And you've never used that skill ever again,
No,
have
I
you?
never argue.
Never.
No, but it's stuff like that. I think we devalue some of that learning and just thinking and how to use those abilities. And I think college should be a place that's happening.
Sure.
Like, especially when we're talking undergrad college. I'm sorry, those of you who come out of high school, if you're listening to this podcast, you're thinking, I already know how to think. You're wrong.
Let's just be honest. You're a child still, and that's okay.
There's a lot of stuff to grow in. And I'm not saying like the college tells you how to think. I'm telling you in a good program that's focused on learning well, in those types of courses, we can learn how to learn. We can learn how to discuss, how to have discourse, different ideas. All of that is important to us as a person. I think a college, and this is where probably I might take issue with the component of a college needs to pick which one they do. At the end of the day, I do think a college should do a little bit of both. But I think we should stop sucking. I think we should stop pretending like we need to get rid of one or the other. I actually disagree. I think colleges are too busy either trying to pick which one they want to do. I think college either wants to be like, we want to do job prep because that people like hearing that.
So you're
we're focused on job prep.
Your point is almost that they're like paralyzed by the fact that they're trying to do both. They're thinking they're doing too much.
They're doing both. In my opinion, they're doing both, but there's something that they care more about.
Sure.
Right? So, like, they may have humanities courses and do things like that, but they're more focused on being a practical job prep school. Or you have we all know those institutions who are like we're the deep thinking philosophical schools.
Right.
But then they do horrible job at actually prepping their people for jobs. Like, that's I think we need to identify that us in colleges, we're going to have to do some of both and figuring out where those happen.
That's
and how they work in concert, because I think they have to work together.
I just think that some of the stuff I've seen in the job prep camp doesn't work in the academia. Like, I'm a working professional. I need a master's degree to level up. It's like, okay, but the master's degree you're coming to get here is in nonprofit leadership. What does that mean? What is nonprofit leadership? Define that as a skill. Define that
specific stab.
Sorry. It's like, I just don't see that being as effective. Now, that's just a programmatic concern, right? You can change that program or assess that differently. But, like, what master's degrees are people doing that are coming back and actually driving them to better work in their factory, in their church community, in their nonprofit, in their tech startup, right? Like, there's things like that where I'm like, you don't need it, and then we try to sell it to them anyways, and
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather
Well,
us
that's-
do the
good
education
point.
stuff well and not get sucked into the business pipeline issues of like, we'll just get people in the seats, and we'll get anybody because this can help them level up in their career. No, it can't. What's going to help them level up in their career is the fact that somebody sees that they got a degree, sure, but it doesn't matter what the degree actually is, and that's its own problem, right? Like the fact that they have a master's degree doesn't matter that it doesn't have anything to do with anything they're actually doing at work.
Yeah. Well, and that's I see that as a slightly, although that's a good point. I wasn't thinking of it from that angle. I see that as like a different. So like here's when I think
It's
of
definitely
job
a
prep,
symptom of the issue, not the
it's
issue
a symptom
itself.
because what I'm thinking of job prep is like, okay, here's how we in these set of courses prepare you to do these skills you're going to need in this area. The problem you're bringing up is a symptom of this, but it's also how higher ed has, specifically us, has ruined this. Is where we've gotten too freaking specific. We're just like, we need this name on this degree. Okay, you want to be a nonprofit leader? We're going to make you a nonprofit leadership. Okay, well, like, couldn't it just be like degree in more general leadership principles? Like,
Right.
why does it have to be specific? And one course could be dealing with nonprofits because there are unique things that nonprofits deal with.
Right, some of the taxes,
you
and
An
structure
entire
and stuff.
program on it, though. Although somebody out there is going to be talking about nonprofit leadership, they'll be like, "You guys are jerks. We have a total program." Okay, that's
hey,
fine.
but Casey's been on this already, and Casey
Yes.
is in a nonprofit, master's in nonprofit
Yeah.
leadership.
Exactly. And I think she would probably
And
agree
she
with me.
hated it.
She hates it. She wants, because we've gotten too specific. We want these degrees in, we keep telling ourselves these lies that like, well, you need this degree to do this. It's like, well, that's not entirely true. Like, for goodness sakes, I got a degree from a seminary and I'm a manager of instructional technology.
Right.
Like, now I work at a college that's, that's in that dynamic, right? And so
right.
there's certain, I teach in that dynamic, so there's certain things that have helped me from
It's
that
not
area. But there's a lot of
useless,
stuff I do,
but it's not your day
on
job.
it's not my day job. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I was just working on automating. something.
And here's
That's not
kind of
my,
my
like that's
Nice.
like
And here's my point to you though about the like why I lean towards the learning side over the job prep side, right? Like you found that edifying, you enjoyed it. It was a decision you made because of maybe where you thought your career was going, but your career's changed. It's not bad that you have the degree, but it didn't prepare you for the job you have. It was a part of maybe more of the job you had at the time, which you did not keep long after your degree, right? Like, I just don't.
no,
I
I'm
think,
still using that in other capacities, right? But
Right.
I would argue, I get your point about the learning thing. I would argue there's elements of that degree that helped me in what I'm doing now. Some of the leadership stuff, people I'm managing, and the time management stuff I learned from being in those degrees, like right. But that was nothing. It wasn't like that was an SLO for the course. It wasn't like let's teach them time management.
On the other
right?
side
Like,
of
so there's-
that, like that's stuff you should probably figure out while you're doing a degree anyways. So it's not like that that wasn't specifically job
true.
prep stuff either. You know, like you have pulled out of it good skills that have prepared you for your job better. It wasn't designed to prepare you for your job.
Yeah, that's true. Now, the reason I go the other end is like, there are some stuff, like if you want to be a counselor, there are things you need to be certified in to be a counselor.
Right.
Like, if you want to be a doctor, like it's not just like, hey, show up to the surgery room and we'll let you test it out. Like there are clear
Well, I actually
jobs.
like those as like better examples of what is more like job prep, right? Like
Yeah.
they both have requirements to do probably 1 or 2 years of the traditional like English 101, English 102, math, blah blah blah. But once you're through the basics of those things, you then do years and years more instruction in being a doctor that's so direct to your field. You either go through that and become a doctor or you don't go through it. Like, there's definitely people who complete the degrees and don't end up as doctors, but like if you go through all that work and you stay in that program, it is giving you the skills, it is giving you the training to be a doctor. I don't know anybody who's in customer support or customer success who has a degree in customer success. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's not something anybody gets trained on doing, and yet that's a huge industry, especially in this booming digital and tech world.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's true. I think. Okay, I get where you're coming from.
Like,
It
I
might-
like
might convince me a
counseling.
little over to the focus on the learning part, only because really what I just think we need to do is stop marketing every
Yes.
degree to
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
Like, why does it have to be? I think we need to think through general principles and then specifics, things that definitely need, like, okay, doctor, that's pretty clear.
Right.
We have a
Needs to
system
be
for that.
trained.
Aside from the fact that I still think it's a scam by how much money you spend to get the degree, but it's fine. They end up making enough to pay it off anyway. So
Right.
hot takes today. But like in counseling, like, okay, there's some clear requirements and things, and those would be areas where people are doing it well. They do actually have decent job prep in it too, where they're doing simulations and they're doing
Social work.
required things that they have to be a part of. Teaching would be another example.
Yep.
There's required field practice stuff. There's required things in that area. But maybe when we start to get to like leadership business areas, maybe we should be a little less specific. Other than maybe accounting, I could see that as a very specific job prep thing.
Well, even the
But, like-
even the famed MBA, like Masters of Business Administration, that was like a corporate thing. If you wanted to be a leader in corporate, you needed to get an MBA. If you want to make money, you need an MBA. And it's like today, every other college puts out a 1.5 year MBA program, and it means nothing. Like,
it means
but
zero.
what did it ever train somebody to do in the first place? Like, it's not necessarily an MBA, a Masters of Business Administration, in accounting, in tax law, in something like that, right? Something that's actually functionally useful for you in a business. It was just like, here's a general master's degree in business general administration. Like, how benign and useless is sorry I just would rather see these things. If you're gonna be specific, like, train people to be a counselor, great. Train people to be a doctor, great. Train people to be a teacher, great. An engineer, these things make sense to me. A communications specialist, like, what are you training someone to be with a communications degree? I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, this is getting real hot.
I just don't
hot
know
topic-y.
what that's really doing. And yet you could still study communications, and you could do that as like a learning and like, I don't know, personal edification thing. I love to see people still study communications. There's a lot to study there, but it's not like a communications degree gets you a job in radio or gets you a job in TV or gets you a job as a social media expert. Like, you have to do you as the person have to do something more to take that communications degree and end up in one of those fields. That to me is the irony of that kind of thing.
That would be where my argument maybe in the communications is there are communications programs that give you a lot of the basic values, and then there's a whole internship system where you get experience
in a
get
field
the
or
things that you
something.
need in the field.
Yeah, one
communications
course.
might not be the best choice.
Maybe
Like,
two, maybe
Well,
two
like,
internship courses, 6
there's
credits.
there's a lot of base skills. So I think the difficulty is that if I was blue skying this, I think we really need to think through more in higher ed of, maybe I'm now going more segmented. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I think there's more integration. You can't break the two, but I think we do need to think through kind of like, what are the steps to what we're doing, right? Like, maybe there's the base stuff we're having people learn, but we do need to maybe get people more into the jobs earlier that they want to do and prep for. If they're going to go do that stuff
100%.
and maybe be different about what we're doing.
There's,
let's cut. Go ahead.
There's a university, I think it's Drexel. That's very, and it's I definitely have heard about it for like the engineers and folks in there. I know 2 people have gone to Drexel for engineering and have gone on to do like PhDs in aerospace engineering and stuff like that. Like, these kids are smarter than me by a long shot. But Drexel does like this trimester setup where you're almost always in school, and very early in the process they get you into a placement. They get you into a firm that does engineering, into a company that's building something, right? So, you're always in school. The trimester structure gives them like a winterim and a 2-week summer break or something. And they're very early always in a company doing it. Like, that to me is the job prep you want to get while you're learning.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that.
While you're learning other stuff, yeah. And that's maybe a good dynamic of like, okay, we're acknowledging that a lot of job prep actually does have to happen in the job experience. So we figure out what are some of the skills that could be learned in a classroom, some of the base knowledge, also some of the general stuff we want people to learn, humanities areas that really grow a person, that make a more developed human being with thoughts and ability to debate and work through things.
Nobody asked for anybody to be thinking here. Come on.
Oh, sorry. Whatever.
We just need citizens who pay their
and
taxes.
actually pairing them together. I think that's the problem with the way we do it in higher ed. And actually, you know what? It's coming back to my integrated approach.
Okay.
The problem we do in higher ed is it's like, here's your gen eds. Okay, now you're done with your gen eds. Here's your... Now you can get into some of your major stuff, and then eventually the last year you'll do like this base internship, but probably they'll just ask you to get you coffee and not pay you. And
unfortunately,
like, welcome to this internship. What would it look like to actually at the beginning be like, okay, you want to do this type of job? We're going to get you a placement in this job where you can learn alongside. You're gonna have a couple of these major courses that actually teach you some of the basics, like for communications, maybe. We're gonna actually teach you how to use Adobe because they're dumb and they don't know user experience, so they make it super complicated and we need a lot of courses.
And it's worth teaching somebody how to use
actually, in fact, let me show you how to use Canva. And then
savage.
You know what? You're also gonna take some of these philosophy courses, these humanity courses, because we value people actually learning how to think, learning how to debate, learning how to work through problems, learning human history to see how we as humans have been, to do all those things, because we believe that shapes a fuller human being to understand those things. And no matter what job you go into, that dynamic of being a person, being able to talk through problems, to think deeply about things, to know how to actually learn yourself is a skill or skills that can be taken absolutely anywhere.
Right.
And so we value those, but we know you also want to be doing this job. So from day one, we're going to help you get into a placement because we know to do that job, you're going to learn better being in it. Well, there's some skills that we need to teach, but we're going to partner with that group to help you be in it the whole time so that you can apply the base skills that you're learning. And I think that fits to anything. Like, no matter what you're ending up learning. Although going to school for philosophy to be a philosopher would be kind of funny. Okay, we're going to put you in a room with just other people who are angry and don't believe what you do, and you're going to just debate.
That's amazing.
Like, that's what you're going to do. But, like, I mean, think about that. That would be a richer experience.
Right.
I think that would be better for what you're paying for. Because to your point, we're trying to do both, but I think we're segmenting them too much.
Yeah.
And we're not acknowledging that the whole picture. I think the problem is, my opinion on all of this is that our goal in college should not be just job prep. It should be a better person by the time they're done. Like a fuller person who knows, like, it's not to say people coming to college, they're just idiots. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, my time in college taught me how to debate. It taught me how to learn. It taught me how to view things. It shaped me as a person. Not just in the abilities and skills that I got, but the way I think and what I do. And I think I'm a better person because of that.
Wow.
Like, and I think that should be our view. And maybe that's a little bit of my philosophical and theological things taking over, but that should be our perspective as a college.
Well,
because if our perspective is just to teach them a couple skills and send them off to a job, we could do that in less than 4 years and with a lot less money.
Right. Well, and here's a little bit of my political leanings. You went all philosophical, theological on this.
Here we go. Hot take.
I still appreciate that a majority of private institutions have the space to make that decision. I can imagine a world where if we had these institutions that were driven exclusively by a public funding, where it would have to be more tied to an ROI, where someone would have to see return on investment to give people degrees for free, right? Like if we pay for people to get a bachelor's degree through taxes and through social systems, I think that there's got to be some expected return on that, and that's the issue where I think we will see people, not just you and me and our like maybe 12 or 24 people around us in our social sphere in this field, but if we broaden this audience and actually polled people, I bet there's people that disagree with us and would want to see it be more one way or the other. That's why I love this topic. That's why I think this is important to talk about. And I think that even in this moment in history, people are wrestling with this. If there's going to be social programs that provide free degrees, those free degrees and the money spent on that through tax systems and things like that should result in something. People should get jobs as a result of that, or they should be able to enter certain job pools as a result of that. We're not in that system yet, but like I would I would want that. I would demand that as a taxpayer if people were getting this kind of thing on my dime, and that's actually more of what I'd like to see in K-12 too, right? That the results that we're getting out of that are not necessarily, No Child Left Behind or uniform development of students, but I'd like to see our public school educations develop the student that they have. And that's something that's really important to me. If you're an artist and you're inclined to that, I want to maybe make sure you have access to some mathematics, maybe make sure you understand some history, but give you the space as a 12-year-old to thrive in your art and not stifle you and make you fail all these algebra courses that you're never going to use. That's the kind of thing where, broadening the topic for a second, but if we're trying to address what's the purpose of education, is it job prep or personal development? I still lean on that personal development side, whether it's K-12 or higher education, because at the end of the day, if this is all business, then the system we have isn't going to do it. That's my 2 cents.
I mean, if it's all job prep, no offense, but we've been doing that before colleges existed, and it was called actually having them do the jobs and learn how to do them.
Yeah, apprenticeships.
And that's the apprenticeships, and that's at the end of the day. It's the thing we want to. I laugh when we talk about education and learning. Is it's on one end I'll hear people say, in learning design and things like that, people learn better in the environments that they're gonna do the thing in.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like we're oh, that's cool, and then we're here's a test on all the terms from the book. Yay! Here you go.
That's a real authentic assessment, isn't it?
You'll be ready for it. There is a disparity between that.
This test will change your life.
Now, if we acknowledge as institutions things that we're doing, we're not just doing job prep. That's when it becomes a thing of okay, well then there are other things we're doing. Yeah. There are other things we're doing to grow a person. We do need to make the job prep a little bit a part of it, because we know at the end of the day when they leave the school, I want to grow a better person, they also need to pay for a house.
And the loans they just took out.
The loans they just took out. So, yeah.
Yep.
And that's our hot take on that. I feel like we could give more.
You and I are.
But I feel like we gotta.
You and I are really I'd say we're really linked into this conversation. We just have so much involvement and interest in it. But we do need to move on to our topic, our app of the day, which is LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay, so which is also just hilarious that you and I both landed on it's not all about job prep, and they're also our app this week is
job prep.
Job prep. No, the reason about this app is Will and I were talking about this. It was actually the Wakelet thing that spawned this thought for me.
Wakelet as a portfolio.
As a portfolio, you and I have talked a lot about portfolio tools. They're a very popular thing in education, especially higher ed. And I do think they're not bad activities. I think especially in fields where it's good to build up a portfolio of things that you've done to show what you've been working on, show the skills that you've developed. At the end of the day, I think a portfolio is really good about showing how you've developed as a person and your skills and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I had this epiphany the other day, because I feel like for this app thing, we don't really need to explain LinkedIn. If you don't know what LinkedIn is,
I probably am going to post this episode on LinkedIn. So if if you're listening to this, you know what LinkedIn is.
If for some reason you don't know what LinkedIn is, Will, give us the 2-sentence description of LinkedIn. Right?
LinkedIn is the professional social media platform that brings people together in a space where they can discuss their professional interests and their resume.
Nailed it.
Boom.
Look at you.
Didn't even need a script.
You're just doing great. Okay, so, yes. Okay, LinkedIn is
you
this
looking for a
general
tagline?
area. No, I was trying to figure something out. LinkedIn. I clicked into my LinkedIn for the first time in a little while, so I have a lot of notifications. I'm horrible at clicking to LinkedIn. You can tell I'm not currently searching for a job. But I did update it recently. I kept it updated. I actually now update the thing. It's pretty decent. Look at me. I just haven't had a lot of updates to post to it in a while, and I haven't used LinkedIn Learning in a little bit. Although I'll be in there soon in a couple months.
Ooh.
Anyway, so LinkedIn is the main area we put a lot. It's basically become an expected requirement when you're applying to things. I wouldn't say necessarily. Obviously, I will say this. Can we just talk for a hot second about how it annoys me that we still all need to submit resumes when literally all of that information is on LinkedIn? I don't
And
Just ask for my LinkedIn.
Even job
Why do I have to-
applications that let you put in your LinkedIn still ask you to put in your resume.
It drives me nuts.
no,
My resume
it's
literally
inefficient.
links to my LinkedIn and tells all the same information that my
Yeah.
LinkedIn does.
Yeah.
Anyway, so LinkedIn's basically this digital resume. Let's be real. But you can, there's courses you can take through LinkedIn. You can do a lot of stuff, which also I recommend if you have not gotten into LinkedIn Learning. I love LinkedIn Learning. I use it a good bit. I know, Will, you've taken courses.
Yep.
I'm actually taking some, preparing to get a certificate in Agile Project Management. So I'm
cool.
going to be doing a course through there.
I manage it and deliver it for my company. So it's one
Yeah.
of the platforms I run. I use it at an administrative level. And of course, then I'm kind of frequently assessing content in it and delivering that content as part of like an L&D learning plan. So this is something I believe in, not only at a personal level, but at a professional level. LinkedIn and the extended LinkedIn learning platforms are really powerful for your personal profile, your personal resume. You know, if you're in a virtual working experience or a working experience that uses computers at any level, this is almost a requirement these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all that background, it has blown my mind as somebody was requesting a portfolio tool that I was like, why don't we use LinkedIn as a portfolio
Just
tool?
start
now,
there.
I know there's plenty of people who do it. Will and I Googled this after we had our epiphany, and we were like, well, I mean, it's not that great of an epiphany. Plenty of people have been doing this. But so our recommendation app would be this. If you're thinking about doing a portfolio with your students, I would encourage you to check out doing it with LinkedIn. And there's a couple reasons why I think this could be helpful. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the top, let's just call it the trinity of portfolio requirements, okay?
Ooh, okay.
Usually is, can the student organize their achievements and work in a visually appealing way?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, okay. Can they publicly share it with other people?
Yes.
Yes. And will they still have access after they have graduated?
Yes.
Okay, see, these
Wow.
three things.
I love that. That's got to go in the page. Write
Those
that
are
down.
always the three things that people are looking for in a portfolio tool. Every
Yeah.
time I talk about a portfolio tool, it's always these three things. You know what apps don't serve that? All
It's
these
also,
darn LMS portfolio tools that they keep coming out with don't meet all three of those standards.
it's also free. Oh.
Yes.
Oh no.
Oh, it should have been a 4. I like
Free?
Trinity, but we'll add the extra. You know, we'll get a little...
Well, you know, here at High Tech Podcast, everything we do is free, so we're just giving
little
LinkedIn
free, yeah.
Learning and LinkedIn a
LinkedIn
little
does
bit
all
free
of those
stress.
things for free, and at the end of the day, you are actually building an active portfolio that they will use after they graduate, unless for some reason LinkedIn goes under and a new tool comes around to solve that problem. But that's a future thing. It's, you know, we'll see what happens.
Not yet.
Maybe LinkedIn will be the MySpace of work social
Oh.
media, and a Facebook will come along.
Rip Tom.
Yeah, anyway. I'm sorry, Tom. I should see if he has a LinkedIn. So, anyway.
That's amazing.
But yeah, so I think LinkedIn would be cool to use. It's pretty simple. Most of your students are going to have to use it anyway after they graduate, so it's a great tool to do that with and build a portfolio. Like, especially if you're in education, you're in communications, you're looking for them to build a portfolio of what they've done, LinkedIn is a perfect place to do that. And, Will, to add a little bonus on, you and I have talked about connecting with like people in the actual job spaces in
Right.
education, like doing those projects. We talked about doing that on Twitter. You could do that through LinkedIn as well. Maybe just throwing out an idea. You decide to do a portfolio project throughout a program. Let's say you're in education, and you wanted to build a portfolio of work they've done throughout their program, so at the end of the program they kind of have this built-up portfolio of what they're doing. But you also want them to connect with real people, and even maybe get feedback on the stuff that they've done. You could connect with some of your connections that have through LinkedIn, encourage them to connect with your students through LinkedIn, and all of a sudden you've got that nailed down all in one program that your students will eventually use after they're done.
And even more so, like think of this for long-term impact. You could make a group on LinkedIn tied to your course content that that your students can put in there as participants of it, and they could have a connection to all of your future students and past students that ever take your course content. That's almost as powerful as a fraternity or an alumni association, how many people those students would have immediate connections to. If you taught this course with the scope of 10 years, they might end up having connections to VPs and C-level folks because of how long you've been running the course and how long you keep people in there. Like, to me, this is just win on win on win. And anymore, job hunting is connections. So the broader you make this approach for folks, the better they're going to be able to use this portfolio. And like my portfolio, I know I've done this as a good example. Like, you can link in URLs to other content. You can put up, like a PowerPoint presentation from something you've done. You can post some images or videos. Like, LinkedIn has gotten more and more friendly to broader types of content. So now it's actually that real and living portfolio experience like you've always been trying to create in your LMS anyways. They can put pictures, they can put videos, they could do like a video introduction to their own LinkedIn page. Like, there's a lot of functionality there that don't go buy a new portfolio software. Sign them up for LinkedIn.
Oh, absolutely. If I can throw out my hot take on a very specific portfolio software, I don't usually get this specific, but Canvas they bought Portfolium a while ago. So we have access to it. And I laugh when I click into it because it literally looks like LinkedIn.
Oh.
It's exactly like LinkedIn. Like, that's literally what it is. But here's the kicker. They don't get long-term access afterwards. Like, they technically can create a free account in that tool, but the way the tool works through the LMS, it like auto signs in with our single sign-on. And because of that, after they lose their student account, they would have to recreate everything they built in Portfolium over there. It just feels like we're making this harder than it has to be. Like, there's already a self-agreed app that does all of this for everybody.
The industry has spoken.
Why is everybody creating their own versions of it in education-wise? And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of things that are useful to do that with. And we've talked about ones like Wakelet. I still love Wakelet as a portfolio tool. I think it's a cool tool. I think LinkedIn, this is literally what LinkedIn's created for. So why are we using other ones? So that's our recommendation this week. Nothing too crazy, nothing too revolutionary. It'll be interesting trying to figure out how I write this episode page.
And if you find yourself on LinkedIn as a result of this episode, make sure to go find Josh and I and connect with us.
Yeah.
Build your network.
We occasionally post about the podcast there, depending on the episode.
That's correct.
And I will log in every month or so to make sure I accept invites.
Just keep the connection still working,
I just was on here and I have like 6 that I have not accepted yet. So, and Will's like, I get 6 like every 5 minutes, So no,
it's all good.
It's fine.
I just get them sometimes.
It's okay. Okay. Anyway, next episode, we are excited because we're having a return guest. This is crazy. We haven't had a guest for a little while. It's pretty cool.
Very excited.
So Robin Jeffers, who was on a little while ago, she wasn't a part of the series. She was just on for funsies. I forget what we actually talked about. I think it was like, what is instructional design?
Yeah, I think that's
what
correct.
we talked about. Was that what it was?
That is
so
what it was.
she is returning. We're going to be talking about taxonomies. And if you don't know what that means, I promise it's not about taxes, okay? It is
that's a very different episode.
That we will give more detail on, and Robin will be recommending an app. We are waiting in anticipation for what that app shall be. For those of you guys who might remember, I work with Robin, and I know she's been looking things up. So we'll see what we get on that episode with Robin. So with that said, just as a reminder, check us out on Twitter at High Tech Podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe. Let us know how you feel. If you disagree with us in this episode about learning and education, you can tell us. Be nice about it. Don't be a jerk. But we can have some fun and have a little bit of debate about it.
We can take it.
We can take it on Twitter. And then, or you can email us at inbox@hightechpod.us. If you have a really mean thing to say you don't want to do in public, that would probably be the place to do it. And then you can check out our website online, hightechpod.us, for all the episode pages and things that we got going on. You can check out some of the episodes we mentioned today and this one on that website if you're listening on your podcast app and you haven't checked it out yet. That said, thank you again for joining us for another week as we continue to learn.
Not job prep.
Not prep. Learn what it looks like to harness technology in the classroom, whether online or in person. See ya.
See ya.